Hello and welcome. What are the consequences of sending a secret hit squad into another country to assassinate someone? That's a question Israelis are having to ponder as the finger of suspicion is pointed at them in the wake of the Dubai killing of the leading Hamas official Mahmoud al-Mabhouh last month. The story becomes a lot more complicated, with the accused assassins using false European passports, causing anger with those governments. Al-Mabhouh was not a high-level operative in Hamas, but Israeli sources say he was involved in smuggling weapons into Gaza. Before he fled to the Gaza Strip in the late 1980s, he was accused of being responsible for the abduction and killing of 2 Israeli soldiers. Al-Mabhouh was an easy target for assassins as he traveled alone, booking his tickets online and calling his family in Gaza to tell them the name of the hotel where he was staying. Less than 6 hours after arrival in Dubai, an international commercial hub, he was dead. The evidence left behind was enough for the Dubai police to create a picture of what happened, including the identification of at least 11 people involved, some travelling falsely as Europeans. And Dubai's police chief, Dahi Khalfan Tamim, vowed to release further evidence to incriminate Israel's secret service, the Mossad, and demanded the arrest of the agency's chief, Meir Dagan, once all the evidence is presented. Israeli officials have tried to downplay the incident in spite of reports that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself authorized the murder. So today we ask, how clear is it that Israel was involved in the murder of the Hamas leader in Dubai? And if proved, who will be held accountable? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or a message on Twitter. We also welcome your phone calls on the show. I'm joined now today by 2 renowned journalists. In Beirut is Robert Fisk, the Middle East correspondent for the Independent newspaper and author of The Great War for Civilization, The Conquest of the Middle East, where he criticizes the Western and Israeli approach to the Arab world. And in Kiryat Shmona in Israel is Yossi Melman, a senior commentator for the Israeli daily Haaretz. He specializes in intelligence, security, terrorism, and strategic issues. Yossi is the co-author of Every Spy a Prince, the complete history of Israel's intelligence community. Gentlemen, I welcome you to the show. And Robert Fisk, if I could start with you and ask, how strong is the evidence that Israel is actually behind this?
Well, look, Riz, I think Yossi will appreciate this. Nobody is blaming the Symbionese Liberation Front for the murder of this Hamas official. And I don't think that the French, German, British and Irish governments called in the relevant Israeli diplomats rather than the Indian ambassador, for example, for no reason. Quite clearly, the enemy of Hamas, the primary enemy, even more than the Palestinians who may or may not have been involved in this, Israel is the enemy of Hamas. And quite obviously, I actually was in Tel Aviv in Israel when the Hamas official was killed. The Israeli papers, even the Jerusalem Post, was saying, you know, you only have to look at the smile on the face of Mr. Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, to know who was behind the killing. So I don't think anyone has much doubt that it was the Israelis. The real question is whether the European governments can deal with this issue of the apparent use of genuine passports, albeit fraudulently imprinted with pictures and wrong signatures, which were used. The British and the Irish and the French and the Germans naturally say, well, hold on a second, if we can have our passports misused, as indeed the Israelis misused Canadian passports in the attempt to kill Mashal in Jordan, and indeed tried to obtain false New Zealand passports not many years ago and had to apologize for, it looks like the Israelis, quite frankly. If it's not them, who is it?
Well, Yossi Melman, let me ask you how this issue is being regarded in Israel. Is there any kind of division among the public on whether this was a right or wrong move?
Well, it's not widely accepted in the Israeli public that the Mossad was behind it, but I would say that most people do tend to believe that Israel indeed was involved in it. Although legally speaking, not from the journalistic point of view or from the commentary perspective, there is no direct evidence which is linking Israel to this case. The chief of Dubai police said that he was certain by 99% that Israel was behind it, but so far he didn't present the full evidence that the Mossad was involved. All we know is that a senior Hamas official operative was murdered, that 11 or more agents, accordingly to the Dubai police, escaped. they carried, some of them genuine European passports, some of them faked passports, and that some of them borrowed names of existing, of living Israeli citizens. This is the only evidence linking Israel to this case. And the Israeli officials today, our foreign minister was requested by Irish and British foreign ministers to provide explanations.
All right, we'll get into details more in a second. Let's get a caller in because we have viewers already wanting to take part. And Ahmed's in Mogadishu, calling in from Somalia. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call, Riz. I was just wondering, is this a normal thing for big governments to just execute, to assassinate people in other foreign countries? Or is it just, are we just lucky because Dubai is a quite developed country, they have a sophisticated police investigation?
Okay.
If this were happening in Somalia or in Kenya or in other countries, would we know it? All
right, that's an interesting point. And actually, what I'll do is I'll add to that. Robert, I'll restate what Ahmed's just said there, but let me add to this question we got from Colorado through Facebook. Muhammad Abdullah wrote in saying, going into another country and killing someone without caring about its sovereignty is savage. Now, what Ahmed was saying is that would we have heard about this had it not been a country with a developed police force such as Dubai? Is this a common thing that people can just go in and create these commit these kind of assassinations?
Look, the war between the Palestinian militants and the Israelis is a dirty, long war that's been going on for many years, for more than the 3 decades that I've been in the Middle East, and I'm used to hearing and reporting on the killing of Palestinians by Israeli agents and the killing of Israelis by Palestinian agents. This is something that's been going on for a long time. The issue here is the issue of the passports for the Europeans. For the Palestinians, of course, it's not. But for the Europeans, and this is what the Palestinians, of course, are looking at, and the Israelis too, it's the issue of the fraudulent use of genuine passports, albeit that the identities in them are themselves fake. And I think this is the real issue. But, you know, people have been using false passports, not necessarily for killing, but governments have been using false passports for a long time. When Oliver North and Robert McFarlane went on their preposterous visit to Iran to try and get the hostages released, you know, arms for which Israel was involved in, of course, they traveled on Irish passports, which turned out to be genuine passports which have been stolen from the Irish embassy in Athens. So governments have been using this for a long time. The Brits do it, the Israelis do it, the Americans do it. The real problem is that once you start defrauding the use of a passport, you make the passport incredible in the sense of being useless, worthless in the eyes of foreign governments. And that's the issue for the Europeans. But no, I'm sorry, it's a dirty war, and dirty wars use dirty means.
Yossi Melman, what's your view on this? The point being made by Robert Fisk here about the use of passports, basically the disrespect of sovereignty of other nations, such as in this case the European passports used.
Well, as Robert said, there is nothing new, but if I may broaden the issue, even if Israel is behind, Israel is not the only country. Israeli secret services are not the only ones who are eliminating enemies. In Dubai itself, a Chechen general was killed a few years ago, most probably by the Russian intelligence. In Beirut, a Lebanese prime minister was assassinated just a few years ago. Syria is accused to be behind it. The Americans are using targeted killings in Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and so on. So, I mean, the Egyptians use that method. The Jordanians have killed their enemies. The Syrians are doing it. Even the British a few years ago were involved in a dirty war with the IRA. So is it an accepted norm? Should we tolerate it? No, but it is happening time and again, time and again.
All right, let's get a caller in from Canada. Nasi's on the line. Go ahead, Nasi.
Hi, hello. And, first of all, I like your program. It's a very nice program. And my question is, what is the evidence that the government of the United Emirates have that Mossad are responsible of the killing of al-Mabhouh.
Now, Robert, you were saying that, of course, all evidence points in the direction of the Israeli Secret Service, and Yossi, you were saying there's nothing direct. What more needs to come out of the Dubai police to suggest this? And I mean, you know, as Nasi is asking, what evidence do they have that seems to be so implicating?
Look, I've been watching the head of the Dubai police, who is actually originally of Yemeni origin, which is an interesting point, and he's obviously enjoying the limelight. I don't think he has enough evidence to stand up what he's saying, but I do believe he has 5 more passports, of which the pictures we have not yet seen. Why not? I don't know. I believe that one of them at least is from the United Kingdom, and it's quite possible that another is actually Irish. I think, though, you know, we've got to be sensible about this. Yossi says there's no evidence that it's the Israelis. Well, excuse me, does he suggest the IRA did the killing? Just imagine for a moment, if I may, if the British had used an Israeli passport to assassinate an Irishman in Dublin, and the Israelis asked the British government, did you use an Israeli passport? And the British government said, we cannot confirm or deny. I think that the Israelis would withdraw their ambassador, Mr. Prosser, I think, from London immediately, and they'd be right to do so. So there's a very serious issue here, over and beyond what is the evidence. I think there's nobody I've met anywhere in the Middle East, and as I say, I was in Israel when this happened. I didn't meet an Israeli who didn't believe this was Mossad. Now, we have a very serious issue here, and the Israeli government have to address it for the European Union, of which it seems they want to be very close in trade links, economic links, security links, and so on. I think the real question, which we're not really getting to tonight so far, is that was there some form of collusion? I don't mean that the British government or any other European Union government wanted to kill the Hamas man and assisted the Israelis, but have the security forces of the European Union, and the West in general, got so close to the security forces and the intelligence forces of Israel that they're actually handing over documents which could be used in dark operations by either of them?
Interesting point you raised, and we're going to get onto that in a second. We have to take a short break now, though. More of our discussion in a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're discussing the fallout of the killing of a Hamas official in Dubai last month. Israel's Secret Service, the Mossad, is accused of assassinating him by sending agents into the emirate on false European passports. I'm joined by Robert Fisk, the renowned Middle East correspondent for the UK-based independent newspaper. He's joining us from Beirut. And in Kiryat Shmona in Israel is author and journalist Yossi Melman, who covers military and intelligence affairs for the respected Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz. And Yossi Melman, a question for you. Now, back in 1987, the Prime Minister then was also Benjamin Netanyahu, and there was an attempted assassination of Khalid Mishal, the Hamas leader, in Jordan. The result of that were that relations with Jordan became very, very severely affected. The Prime Minister was forced to release the Hamas spiritual leader, Ahmed Yassin. So I wonder, when these kind of assassinations take place, now I know you're saying that there's no clear evidence in this case, it was Israel, but when these kind of assassinations take place, what price, political price, do they carry?
In 1987, there was a major difference between then and now. Israeli agents were arrested by the Jordanian police. 4 Israeli agents carrying Canadian passports were found shelter in the Israeli embassy, and the Israeli Prime Minister was forced to apologize. And as you mentioned, the spiritual leader of Hamas, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, was released. And not only then, that an Israeli doctor flew to Amman, Jordan, and saved the life with the antidote of Khalid Mashal. Now there is no there are no similar circumstances. Therefore, I believe that there is no serious political or from the intelligence point of view fallout, neither for the Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, nor for the head of Mossad, Meir Dagan, who, although there were some voices and calls in Israel, mainly in the media, for his resignation, among them a colleague of mine in the Israeli daily Haaretz, but I don't think that Mr. Dagan would resign. Anyway, he's ending his tenure by the end of this year. And once again, the series of the faked passport is very serious. But at the same time, I think it's not going to develop into a major diplomatic row, unlike Robert's expectations or belief or analysis. And a major reason for it is not that there is a lack of legal evidence that can be proved in the court or in the court of law or in the diplomatic field, but also that since 9/11, Israel and Western European nations, through their secret services, are improving their cooperation in what is termed as the war against the global terrorism, and the cooperation between the MI6 or the German BND, their security services, and the Mossad is much, much better. I know that there are joint operations in the field. I know that occasionally European secret services are providing what is known as documentation, if you wish, sometimes passports, not always knowingly to what purpose. Therefore, I think after a few days, this storm is going to fade away.
Well, Robert Fisk, on that issue you raised before the break about the complicit, or at least the nature between the various governments, a couple of emails here I'll put to you, actually. One has come in from Ansar Bakshi. And Ansar Bakshi wrote in saying, does Mr. Fisk believe that Britain had prior information about this, and how, if in any way, would this incident affect Israel's credibility in the international community, given the blatantly unconditional support it enjoys from the US and its allies? And the second is from Dara Onaire in Ireland, who says, as an Irish passport holder who visits the Middle East frequently, I'm outraged by Israel's actions. Now I'll come under suspicion wrongly. The Irish government's apathetic reaction indicates that Israel's interests are more important to it than the safety of its own citizens. And how do you gauge the reaction by the European governments? Is that frustration and anger genuine?
Right. Well, number one, despite what Yossi says, I believe the Israelis will get away with it as usual. I don't think this diplomatic reaction is going to continue much longer. Number two, it's astonishing to hear Yossi say, and I hope he's writing about it, that indeed Western European governments are complicit in providing passports to the Israelis, and perhaps vice versa, but I doubt it, for operations they don't know about. This is the great fear. For example, the Canadians have such a deep security relationship now with Israel that they actually allowed themselves to send a delegation of Canadian policemen to Tel Aviv, where they were stupid enough to allow the Israelis to have them dressed up as suicide bombers with little belts. The pictures have appeared in the Canadian press. But no, the overall issue is this. You know, I'm a British passport holder. Here is my passport, and it's real. And the issue that is about Dubai for the Europeans, they were not fake passports, as Yossi says. They were real passports with fake names and pictures. The question is, who provided the documents, the actual British passports, to the Israelis? Were they stolen? Were they bought? Or was someone in the European security services, the British for instance, saying, well, look, I know you need 12 passports. This is in return for information you gave us last week. This is the issue that the European Union are facing, and which eventually, of course, they will duck. Israel will get away with this, as usual. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that's what they were working on the basis of, and that's how it will be.
Yazan's in Japan on the line, waiting patiently. Yazan, thank you for your call. What would you like to ask?
Thank you. I want to ask Mr. Fisk about the European media's fascination, what he thinks about the European media's fascination with the Mossad. A fascination that was so obviously and blatant in several editorials that we read recently about the assassination of Al-Mabhouh. Even though in this case in particular has a severe and direct repercussions on the EU. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, well, can I reply straight away, Riz? Look, the issue is this. My newspaper, the London Independent, has been extremely harsh over the misuse of passports, quite apart from the fact that they've used the word crime about the killing of the Hamas official. He wasn't a very sympathetic guy, let's be frank about it, but to kill a person in a hotel room in a foreign country is a crime, whether you like it or not. I think, by and large, The Irish reply was very good. The Irish foreign minister said how angry he was, and I gather from my own sources that he was much more abrasive with the Israeli foreign minister, the awful Mr. Lieberman today, than our mouse-like foreign secretary, Mr. Miliband, who oddly enough described the whole affair as an incident when he was first asked to comment on it. An incident rather than a murder or the misuse of European passports, which does make me have my suspicions about the Brits in all this matter. I don't believe, by the way, that they did have prior knowledge of the attempted or actual successful murder of the Hamas official in Dubai. But no, look, I think one of the great problems is that Hollywood and novels have provided this idea that Mossad is an elite super intelligence organization. My view, given the experience in Lebanon of Shin Bet, Bittachon Security Services and Mossad, is that the Israeli intelligence service isn't much better than the intelligence service of Syria, Jordan, Egypt, or any other Middle Eastern state. The overall rule of thumb, I'd say very briefly, is this: whenever I hear the word intelligence services, I know that they're not very intelligent.
Okay, Mr. Melman, just 30 seconds to go. A quick question. Is Israel bracing for any kind of retaliation from Hamas?
I don't think so, although they would try, as Israel is expecting a retaliation from Hezbollah for the killing of Imad Mounia 2 years ago. Once again, Israel is accused for it, the Mossad is accused for it. But I think there is a broader issue here, and I'll be very brief in 10 seconds.
Yeah, I've got 10 seconds.
One of the reasons why Israel probably would get away with it is that there is a war against a terrorist group called Hamas, and the world accepts it.
All right, Yossi Melman, thank you very much. And Robert Fisk, thank you. Sorry we're out of time, but glad to have you both with us. Thank you for being with us too. Remember, you can watch a podcast of the show on iTunes. This week we're featuring a debate on Operation Mushtarak, a big anti-Taliban push being carried out by NATO and Afghan forces in Helmand province. On the next show, what will Cuba be like without its revolutionary leader? We talk with one of the people who was closest to Fidel Castro, then ran afoul of him, author and journalist Norberto Fuentes. Be sure to tune in for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.